Hi, good evening. I'm Soraya Mia, and this is AWANI Tonight. MOH wants double allocation for healthcare in budget 2023. And will 35% share for Sabah Sarawak leaders bring meaningful change? That's coming up. The Health Ministry aims to double its budget allocation percentage from about 2.1% of Malaysia's GDP at present to 5% in the near future. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin did not reveal how much they were seeking from the government for next year, but said it would include an additional 3.4 billion ringgit for a list of 6 new initiatives.
The initiatives include strengthening of the healthcare and wellness program, improvements to health facilities, improving the effectiveness of treatments, replacement of critical and obsolete medical assets, digitalization of healthcare services, as well as incentives for personnel. The government allocated some 32.4 billion ringgit for MOH in this year's budget to cover its operational and development expenses. Meanwhile, Khairi said there were currently 2,732 government clinics in neglected condition, particularly those in rural areas including Sabah and Sarawak. Even if the application is approved, he said it would require up to 5 years for his ministry to implement every initiative.
In a move to address toxic work culture and bullying within the Health Ministry, government hospital directors will soon have their performances assessed by both their peers and subordinates. Khairi said MOH will extend the use of its 360-degree assessment system, now only used on the top management, to all hospital directors.
The ministry plans to gradually widen the system's use until it covers all levels, including heads of departments and specialists. A new complaint mechanism has also been set up to allow doctors and all other personnel to safely report their grievances. The dedicated complaint line called My Help will be available from October 1st. Through the use of this system, Khairi said MOH will be able to take immediate action in a more transparent manner while protecting the identity of those who lodge reports.
Khairi also announced that more than 3,000 contract nurses will be offered permanent positions in the third and fourth quarters of 2022. The appointments, he said, will be done in phases.
This will involve 1,136 grade U29 contract nurses from MOH's Training Institute, as well as 2,804 contract nurses from private institutions who are still serving the ministry through the Public Services Commission. Khairi said over 3,000 contract nurses were already absorbed into the ministry during the pandemic. He added that they will promote another 110 nurses with bachelor degrees recognised by the government on October 17th. The ministry also aims to make some 226 positions involving grade U41, U42 and U44 nurses available between 2023 and 2025.
Meanwhile, the G25 group of prominent retired civil servants urged Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob to let Parliament complete its full term until July next year. It said there was no reason for him to ask the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to dissolve Parliament to make way for GE15, since Sabri was not facing any vote of no confidence.
In a statement, it said that any move by the Prime Minister to dissolve the Parliament early, in the absence of a vote of no confidence against him, will be seen as a capitulation to the demands of the UMNO leaders for their own self-interests. Although the group noted that Malaysia was facing political instability, it maintained that it was not the right time to hold GE15 in view of the economic downturn. Putrajaya, it said, should spend the remaining months of this parliamentary term to work on the budget and hold discussions with MPs on tackling economic issues like the declining ringgit. It also urged the government to quickly deliver reforms like the anti-party hopping and political financing laws, so that when the next elections are held, the people can feel that it is a meaningful exercise of electing a clean and trustworthy government.
Authorities in Venezuela have arrested former Malaysian businessman and fugitive Leonard Glenn Francis, or known as Fat Leonard, after almost 3 weeks on the run. Leonard was apprehended as he was trying to board a plane in the Caracas airport.
According to an Interpol official, Leonard had travelled through Mexico and Cuba before attempting to board a flight to Russia. A global Interpol warrant had been out for his arrest as authorities tried to track him down. He is now due to be extradited back to the US. Leonard escaped house arrest on September 4th, where he fled his California home after cutting off his ankle monitor. Having run a military contracting company based in Singapore, he was found guilty of bribing US Navy officials for their intelligence and influence. Leonard pleaded guilty in 2015 to his charges, including overcharging the Navy of at least $35 million. He was originally scheduled to be sentenced on September 22nd.
Having a bigger representation alone in Parliament will not solve the problems facing the people in Sabah and Sarawak. UNIMAS political analyst Dr. Arnold Puyok discusses the demand from the Malaysian leaders to push for 35% parliamentary seats compared to the current 25%.
Even if we increase the current representation for Sabah and Sarawak in Parliament, I do not think that would solve our problems in Sabah and Sarawak. Because I think our two main problems in Sabah and Sarawak, number one is governance, and number two is leadership. What I mean by this is that we do not have enough capable and competent leaders who are in the position of political leadership and who have the political will to bring about meaningful changes in the state administration. If you look at our institutions, I think our institutions in Sabah, in Sarawak, in particular in Sabah, remain very, very weak, as the civil service is weak. So if Sabah and Sarawak want to move forward, I think they should start with the civil service.
He also explained the significance of the constitutional amendment to elevate statuses of Sabah and Sarawak and its impact towards better representation in Parliament.
It is understandable why Sabah and Sarawak are persistent with this 30% demand, because I believe this is as a consequence of the recent constitutional amendment that renamed Sabah and Sarawak as Borneo states, and also recognize MS-63 as a foundational document for the founding of Malaysia. Surely for Sabah and Sarawak, they want this amendment to come with certain weightage, because a lot of people say that this amendment is a mere symbolism for Sabah and Sarawak. But for Sabah and Sarawak leaders, I think what is in their mind is that they want to prove that this is not a mere symbolism. This would come with some weightage. That is why we see in Sarawak they changed the CM's name to Premier, and now they want to have a greater representation for Sabah and Sarawak in Parliament.
Sabah and Sarawak currently have 25% of seats in Dewan Rakyat, but should it be increased to 1/3 to reflect the arrangement of the Federation? On Consider This, we ask our guest why he thinks this could have unintended consequences for our parliamentary democracy. We'll go for a short break. Stay with us.
Sehat ialah satu cara hidup. Cara untuk minum dengan baik, makan dengan baik, dengan bahan-bahan segar dan pelbagai cara yang sihat untuk memasaknya. Bakar, kukus, masak, campur, jus. Khas untuk semua amatur dan pakar. Gaya hidup sihat yang memasak di hujung minggu, menyihatkan badan dan jiwa. Hidup sihat setiap hari bersama Panasonic.
Panasonic.
Macam mana nak berniaga kalau sering berdepan gangguan internet dan ancaman cyber? Dengan penyelesaian Maxis Business, anda pasti boleh. Berniaga di mana saja, bila-bila masa, dengan panggilan dan data tanpa had, walau anda berada di luar pejabat. Anda tidak perlu risau lagi dengan perlindungan cyber yang hebat. Miliki pelan Maxis Business Postpaid dan Fiber hari ini.
Peningkatan harga barangan yang dipengaruhi oleh pelbagai faktor mengakibatkan Malaysia juga terpaksa berdepan dengan tempias tersebut.
PDRM mengesahkan tidak menerima sebarang laporan penculikan dan juga penjualan organ kanak-kanak di negara jiran.
Filem Mat Kilau ini boleh saja dianggap biopik terhebat alaf ini.
Welcome back. U.S. Federal Reserve raised interest rates for 0.75 of a percentage point for the third consecutive time. Fed Chair Jerome Powell signaled inflation is proving to be far stickier than imagined, leaving the door open for more hikes this year to reach its goal of 2% inflation.
Today, the FOMC raised its policy interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point, and we anticipate that ongoing increases will be appropriate. We are moving our policy stance purposefully to a level that will be sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2%. In addition, we are continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet.
U.S. inflation eased slightly to 8.3% in August after peaking at 9.1% in June, but remained close to a 4-decade high. The move comes despite growing concern that controlling inflation could lead to a harsh economic downturn. Banks in nearly every country are facing similar trade-offs as they also raise rates to combat inflation. With today's hike, U.S. interest rates have been pushed to the highest level in 14 years. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky urges the United Nations to punish Russia for its invasion and strip it of its veto rights as a Security Council member. The calls come ahead of the UN Security Council's meeting on the Ukraine-Russia conflict today. The Security Council is not able to take meaningful action on Ukraine because Russia is a permanent veto-wielding member. Other members include the United States, France, Britain, and China. The meeting will be at least the 20th time the Security Council has met on Ukraine this year. The showdown will include Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov facing off his Ukrainian and Western counterparts, including U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Russia and Ukraine have carried out a surprise prisoner swap involving nearly 300 people, the largest since Moscow's invasion began nearly 7 months ago. It was the result of months of efforts with help of mediation from Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Ukraine's defense ministry shared a video showing ex-prisoners being greeted after the swap. Those released include more than 100 members of the Azov battalion hailed as heroes for mounting resistance at a steelworks in Mariupol. In exchange, Ukraine sent back 55 Russian fighters and Viktor Medvedchuk, an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is facing treason charges. Those released also include prisoners of war from countries including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Morocco, some of whom had been sentenced to death after being captured in Ukraine and accused of being mercenaries. Over in Australia, around 200 pilot whales have died, and just 35 remain alive after a mass stranding in the west coast of Tasmania. Following a day-long effort in difficult conditions, State Wildlife Services say 32 whales were rescued so far. Marine biologists have refloated and tagged each whale deemed suitable for release back to sea. Rescuers previously estimated that about half of the whales were still alive. Locals had covered some of the animals with blankets and doused them with seawater to keep them alive until more help arrived. But many of the whales were unable to make it through the ordeal. Efforts will now turn to the task of disposing the carcasses, which often attract sharks. It is the second mass stranding of whales to take place in Tasmania this week, after more than a dozen sperm whales were found dead on another beach. For the first time, a spacecraft will attempt to hit an asteroid to change its speed and trajectory. The NASA-built spacecraft named DART is expected to collide with a 170-meter wide asteroid named Dimorphos on Tuesday at 7:14 p.m. Malaysia time. Dimorphos is no threat to Earth, but it has been chosen to help prove that dangerous incoming rocks can be deflected by intentionally crashing something into them. The spacecraft will go at speeds of about 24,000 kilometers per hour before it collides with Dimorphos, which will be at about 11 million kilometers from Earth at the time. DART, designed to operate fully autonomously, will be the first full-scale demonstration of asteroid deflection technology. If successful, it will demonstrate that if a killer asteroid ever heads our way, we'll stand a fighting chance. DART blasted into space last November on a SpaceX rocket. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Soraya Mia, and we'll see you again.